Picture this. A woman, 8 months pregnant, shivering in a hospital bed alone. She's got nothing but a coin in her hand, a soaked nightgown clinging to her skin, and a baby fighting to live inside her. Her husband? A liar who abandoned her. Her in-laws? They threw her out like trash. Even her own family, they're turning their backs. This, my friends, is where Madhu's story begins, a tale of betrayal so brutal. It'll hit you right in the gut. But what she did next, that's the part you won't see coming. Stay with us. You're about to witness a fight that'll leave you speechless.
Madhu was a dreamer, you see. A young bride stepping into an arranged marriage, her heart stitched with hope, her hands adorned with henna. She'd never laid eyes on the groom before. Her father chose him, following a tradition as old as India itself. Centuries of faith in that system. And Madhu trusted it too. She walked into her husband's home, eyes sparkling with visions of a new life, a family, a future. But that dream? It lasted exactly 1 week. 7 days, before everything she believed in started to crack. One day while cleaning, innocent as that sounds, she found something. Hidden in a dusty cupboard were the originals. Birth certificates, 10th grade mark sheets, proof that her husband wasn't who he said he was. Not a young merchant navy officer with a promising career. No. He was older, much older. And the life he'd painted for her? A lie. A complete calculated deception. The floor seemed to sway beneath her feet. Her breath caught in her throat. What do you do when your whole world turns out to be a sham? She wanted to run, to scream it all to her parents, her father, who'd picked this man, her mother, who'd blessed the union. But then she stopped. What would they think? How could she dump this shame on them? Madhu was raised to carry burdens quietly, like so many Indian girls are. So she swallowed it, kept it locked inside her chest. A week passed, then 10 days. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. She faced him, her husband, the stranger. What's this? She demanded, holding up the papers. His response? A shrug. A cold, careless shrug, like she didn't even matter. Crushed, she fled to her parents' home, her safe haven, or so she thought. In a voice barely above a whisper, she told her father, "Something's wrong, very wrong." He patted her hand like any father would and said, "Don't worry, beta. It'll sort itself out." But it didn't. Months later, she was sent back to her in-laws, pregnant now, carrying a 3-month-old life inside her. That's when the real storm hit. Her in-laws got wind of the pregnancy, and you'd think they'd soften, right? Wrong. Their eyes narrowed, their voices turned sharp. "Go back to your parents," they snapped. "You'll need doctors, medicines, we can't handle that here." Madhu, though, she wasn't just some helpless girl. She was educated, sensible. She stood her ground. "Why should I leave?" she asked, her voice trembling but firm. "This is my home now, isn't it?" But in a society like this, a woman's questions don't always get answers. They packed her off anyway, pregnant, with nothing but a nightgown, and a few rupees her parents had slipped her. She was caught in a tug-of-war, her mother pleading, "You take her," her husband growling, "No, you take her." And Madhu, she stood in the middle wondering, where do I even belong? Back at her parents' house, the struggle didn't stop. You see, in India, a married girl returning home, it's a mark of shame. People whisper. They judge. What's wrong with her? They'd say, why couldn't she make it work? Even her family, 6 siblings, a middle-class government worker father, they tried to support her at first. But slowly, oh so slowly, she felt it, the shift. The patience wearing thin. And Madhu, she'd already lost so much. Her childhood, snatched away at 6 by tuberculosis, 6 months of pills, no playing, no carefree days. Now this, pregnant, abandoned, and fading into the background of her own life. But Madhu wasn't born to fade. 8 months pregnant, she made a choice. She turned to her father, voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. "Take me back," she said. "My child will be born in my husband's home, nowhere else." Her father hesitated. Oh, he didn't want to, but she begged, pleaded, until he gave in. They went back. And for 15 days she tried. She really tried. But the taunts, the cold stares, they didn't stop. Pregnant and weak, she had no money, no medicines, just the clothes her parents had sent with her. Then it got worse. One night in her 9th month she fell ill, terribly ill. Her lips bled, her throat burned, her body gave out. Her in-laws didn't lift a finger. They called her parents instead. Come get her, they said. She was rushed to the hospital, 8 months pregnant, wearing nothing but that same nightgown, now staying torn. That night was a blur of pain. Physical, yes, but deeper in her soul. By morning, alone in that sterile room, she wondered, how do I save my baby? How do I save myself? And then, in a moment of desperation, she made a move no one saw coming. With no one around, she slipped out, 8 months pregnant, one coin in her hand, rain soaking her to the bone. She didn't know if she wanted to end it all, or find a way to survive. She ended up at a police station, silent, tears streaming down her face. She wouldn't give her name, wouldn't point fingers. Her brothers, they came looking, racing through the cold night on a bike, hearts pounding. Where's our sister? They begged the police. An officer pointed to her, veiled and trembling. Her younger brother cried out, that's her. And oh, the pain in his voice. Madhu covered her face, ashamed, refusing help. No complaints, she whispered. Just let it be. Then the media descended, news vans, microphones, chaos. Madhu, still reeling, begged them, please leave me alone. She went home, barely patched up at a hospital. Her due date was November 27th. But the weight of it all, it broke her early. Her son came premature, tiny and fragile, a fighter like her. At discharge, her husband showed up, not out of love, but fear she'd snitched to the police. There, with her newborn in her arms, her mother on one side, him on the other, it played out again. You take her, her mother said. No, you take her, he shot back. Madhu looked at her baby, and knew she was on her own. But Madhu didn't crumble. When her son was 4 months old, she tried one last time, went back to her in-laws, hoping the baby might change their hearts. Her father took her, reluctant but supportive. On the way, her brother-in-law intercepted, then ditched her halfway. Panic set in. She called her father, who raced back. They reached the house, doors locked, family gone. Rain started falling, and Madhu stood there, shielding her baby lost. But the villagers, they saw her. They rallied, filed a complaint. Her husband's family, scared now, pushed for divorce. That word, divorce, it hit her like a slap, but also like freedom. I'm done, she told her father. I'll live for my son. Back home she started over, found a job teaching, Indian rupee 400 a month, peanuts, but it was hers. She chased a childhood dream, beautician work, failed twice but kept going, studied hard, opened a parlor downstairs, coached kids by day, hired a girl for 3,000 rupees, leaned on her mother for help. The parlor grew. Women loved her grit. She hired teachers, ran a coaching center, paid for diapers, fixed her scooter. Then a second chance at love came knocking. A new husband, a man who gave her trust, love, support. He pushed her to study, to dream bigger. Together, they turned her pain into power. She stepped into media, built a life she controlled. The girl who once couldn't scrape a rupee together, who'd stared at death, and turned away for her son, she's thriving now. Proudly she says, I couldn't travel 40 kilometers alone then. Now, I'm ready to cross 7 seas. Madhu's fight. It's raw, it's real, it's everything. If it moved you, hit subscribe. Share this with someone who needs a spark. Because in the darkest nights, the fiercest stars are born.